back to multilingual. I come from Bulgaria.
Yeah.
My native language is Bulgarian. My girlfriend, she's from the Netherlands. We both communicate in English and we speak German also.
Yeah.
Imagine that we have a child.
Yeah.
What is the most appropriate way to upbring the child so that it understands a little bit Bulgarian, a little bit Dutch, and let's say, I don't know, German or English, for example?
So, from the 1913, we have the one parent, one language theory, right? Which suggests that it helps the child if one parent speaks one language, the other parent speaks the other language, and that's this additional cue. We were just talking about these multisensory cues. That's a very easy cue for the baby that, this input is coming from this person, so therefore it must be Bulgarian and that must be Dutch because it's coming from mum rather than from dad. Great idea. We don't tend to do it that well. So it's, while we can consistently stick to one language, so we do this in my house, my husband is German, so we do have a sort of one parent, one language system going on. It's obviously the case that we're speaking to each other. My kids know that I speak German. So, they went through a phase where they were speaking to me in German because they knew, she understands what we're saying. So why do I have to bother speaking to her in a different language? So there's a bit of flexibility in how much we use it. I was actually worried about this, and this is purely anecdotal. There is no science behind it, but I was, so when my kids, both of them were about 2.5, they went through this phase, which kids typically go through. So immigrant children tend to refuse to speak the minority language and focus more on the majority language. And that's what my kids were doing. They were speaking German to me. They knew I spoke German. And then I wrote to a lot of bilingual researchers that I know, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? How am I going to get my kids to speak this? And the tip that I got from 2 of them, and it actually worked out that way, was to get someone who didn't speak the majority language there. And my mum came to visit. She doesn't speak German. And within the 1 month of her visit, they went from refusing to speak to me in any language apart from English to full sentences. So it's sort of these societal pressures that come in as well, and what kind of cues you have. That's why one parent, one language may not work for a child who knows that you do speak German. So it may say, I don't need to speak Bulgarian with dad because he speaks German. That's what my friends are speaking, so let me speak German to him. So introducing those kind of partners helps a lot. But whatever you can do helps a lot. Because again, we'll go back to my favorite sentence. Language is a social beast. Your baby will learn language if it hears that language. It may have receptive fluency in that language if it's not forced to produce the language, which is why it helps to have somebody who the child needs to use that language with. So trips to see grandparents, trips to the country help a lot. But at the end of the day, even if it's just getting receptive fluency early on, so it's learning to understand the language early on, that's also a plus. So as much as you can do, as comfortably as you can do, is the most important thing for a child.
So, yes, talking to the child in a certain language, but as you mentioned, they will pick up from the environment. They go to school, kindergarten, etc., and then they will speak another language. What if I try to pretend that I don't understand? Would that work? No? I cannot do it. Wow.
It's very difficult to do. You can stick to your guns about this, and you can... So it's possible for us to always reply in your language, in Bulgarian, when the child speaks German to you. That's something that people manage to do quite robustly. I can't remember the numbers about this, but there's some data on that. But pretending you don't speak German is not going to be possible the second you take your child outside of your house. Because it's going to see you speak German and hear you speak German. So it's just not going to work.
Wow. And is there any language learning delay when we have multilingual upbringing, or do you know about something?
So there was a lot of discussion about this, right, in the 60s and the 70s, that these kids who were growing up bilingual were having a language delay. There's a teeny tiny language delay of about 2 months, which disappears as the child gets older. we know for sure that it helps the child, especially to learn more languages as well later on. There's a bit of a debate as to whether there are actually cognitive advantages with bilingualism, which isn't quite settled yet, but it definitely helps the child in staying flexible to learn other languages. At the end of the day, we are an ever more multilingual society. So if you're preparing your child, I think the more languages it can hear, the better. But at the same time, I think it's important that parents are not put under pressure to then go and learn Chinese, to speak Chinese to their child. I think you have to do what you're comfortable doing with the child. And that's the most important thing.